Welcome to Prep Rally presented by AR Preps. I'm your host, Vernon Tarver with the Northwest Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. This is Chip Souza joining me this week. And we are pumped because football is finally here. High school football is finally here. We've been waiting a long time, Chip. All these teams have been, in the off season, in the fall. They call it fall camp, but it's really the dog days of summer.
Absolutely the dog days of summer.
And but now it's here. Week one is here, and it's almost like the college season. It's a great week one. They've been hyping up the college week one, but it's a great week one for high school too. We got a lot of great games to talk about, and in our area especially, a lot of excitement. I guess it begins, with some new coaches, new teams. I mean, you can start off with Bentonville West. They're getting started right off the bat.
Well, the entire 7A West is new this year. At least half of the teams are. You got 4 new coaches at different schools. You have a brand new school that you had mentioned in Bentonville West. You got Van Buren coming back into the conference. They've been out for a couple of years. You got the 4 Smith schools are no longer in the conference. So it's shaping up to be at least an interesting season, no doubt about that.
From top to bottom, the conference has got a lot of new faces. You talked about Fayetteville with Bill Blankenship. Taking over a power program. They got a lot of expectations, and he comes in with the team expected to do well. And they take on Blue Springs out of Missouri right off the bat. Blankenship, I'm sure, with his days at Tulsa Union and University of Tulsa, expects to come in here and win right off the bat. So Fayetteville will be, one to look out for. But then going through the rest of the conference, Bentonville West. Coaches picked them at the bottom, but they might surprise some people.
Well, they could, and the good thing about Bentonville West is even though it is a first-year varsity program, their head coach was there last year.
Right.
He was there last year, Brian Pratt. He coached their 9th grade team, so he's had all these kids, or most of the kids in the program. He's had them for a full year in his system. So although he's new to the 7A West, he's not new to the kids that he'll have.
One of the guys you're real familiar with, also new to the conference, Tony Travis. Rogers Heritage struggled. It's a rebuild, but he's done that. He's proven that he's a man for the job for something like that.
Any coach will tell you that a football program starts up front. They'll start with the offensive line, and they build from there. I'd rather, there's not anybody you'd rather have building your program from that level than Tony Travis. He knows what it takes to build an offensive lineman. This season we'll see how it goes. It's going to take him a little while to get those big linemen, in that weight program and whatever. And he's had one off season with them, but I think they'll be right in the mix for one of those 6 playoff spots in the 7A West.
Mike Lloyd is another kind of established coach, proven coach that comes into Rogers High. They've got their work cut out, because it is another struggling program that tried to build up. But it's one of those deals where you give him some time, let the thing get built up, and just be interesting to see what he does, over some time.
Well, the offense will be different. There's no question about that. Rogers has been a really a ground and pound offense the last couple of years under Sean Flanagan. It was an offense that they felt like suited the personnel that they had best. Coach Lloyd is going to run a more open offense, a more passing than what they've had in the past. So it'll be interesting to see how the kids over at Rogers take to that. It's really a drastic change.
Zach Clark was in this position at Springdale a year ago. He was the new guy. He was doing the rebuild. Now suddenly he's like the veteran. He's one of the veterans, and he's in a good position just being in year 2 at Springdale.
He is, and other than Chris Wood over at Crosstown Harbor, Zach is one of the elder statesmen of the conference. So just all new faces, new teams. Everything has a new feel to it in the 7A West. But what it's going to come down to is in December, and will this conference win its 52nd consecutive state title, however many it's been.
10 in a row at least, and that will be a challenge because there's some Fayettevilles and Harbors at the top, but a lot of coaches will tell you that the conference as a whole, maybe the Central is now as a conference, is stronger. With the depth.
Well, adding two Fort Smith schools to the Central makes that conference already better. And I'm not saying it diminishes the 7A West, but it does make the Central Conference better. Anytime you get 2 Fort Smith schools with, great programs over there and add those to your conference, it's going to make you better.
Like we said, a great first week of games. And we haven't even gotten to the other classifications, but you've got Harbor hosting Fort Smith Southside. There's a traditional rivalry conference game that now becomes a great non-conference matchup. As Chip mentioned, Southside and Northside go to the Central Conference, and I know Jeff Williams and Southside are the Mavericks are expecting some big things this year, so that's a great matchup. Bentonville hosts ROCKHURST out of Kansas City, a power. The Rockers actually won that matchup last year. As we mentioned earlier, Fayetteville and Blue Springs. Blue Springs comes to Fayetteville. They have been a traditional power, winning some state championships. Even you go down the rest of the conference, SILOAM, Springs, and Rogers, that's a tough one to call. SILOAM's doing some better things. Rogers Heritage, going to Little Rock Central. We expect Tony Travis to get it going, but at the position they're in week one, first year, tough game. Van Buren already played. We already saw Van Buren lost to their rival. Maybe give you an idea of what they're going to be like this year. Springdale saw Conway last year in the playoffs, and now they go right back to Conway for their opener. So that's a tough test. And Bentonville West goes to Pryor, Oklahoma for their very first game, school's program's very first game, and they might get a win. I mean, that's a good matchup for West. So there's your 7A West season opening week one games. It's good. And then there's some great games just around our area that AR preps, and we'll be all over this week. Rivalry games, that's the tricky thing, is some of these rival teams, Chip, aren't in the same conference anymore. I mean, let's talk about some of those. Farmington, Prairie Grove.
Well, I'm glad they kept that game. They made that the season opener. Farmington's moved up to Class 5A now, but the coaches, they kept that game because it is a big rivalry game, and it's a long-time rivalry game, and I'm glad to see that they kept that.
You've got Farmington and Prairie Grove. You've got some other great games just in that 4A1 conference to start off. Booneville, Pea Ridge. Pea Ridge, are they going to keep it going? Tony Travis is gone. Are they going to be a statewide kind of power still?
I thought that when they made a coaching change at Pea Ridge, they brought in Crosby Tuck from Shallow Christian to come over and be the offensive coordinator at Pea Ridge. My thought was, well, here they go. They're going to spread it out. They're going to run the no huddle like Shallow Christian has done and like Crosby Tuck had played in as a player at Shallow Christian. Under Josh Floyd, and thought that they would do that, but no. Stephen Neal, the new coach over at Pea Ridge, was defensive coordinator over at Tulsa Union. He came in and said, no, we are not changing a thing. We're going to play Pea Ridge football. That is power football. We're going to line up and run the ball down your throat with Zane Holly, one of the best running backs in Class 4A. And so they're not going to deviate from what Pea Ridge has built its success on.
You mentioned Shiloh, you mentioned Crosby Tuck. Let's talk about the Saints real quick, because they have real high expectations this year.
Best team since 2010. They've got 10 offensive starters back. They've got a 3-year starter at quarterback back. Got some talented skill position players. The key for Shiloh is going to be defensively. How good are they going to be defensively? Because there's going to be games that they're going to need to make stops on opponents, and that's going to be the big key for them. Offensively, I have no doubt they'll put points on the boards. That's what they do. So they're excited over there about it. The conference as a whole, everybody talks about how tough the 4A7 conference is, and it is a great conference. Mm-hmm. It's got great teams, and a lot of people would say it's the best conference in Arkansas football, regardless of classification.
Yes.
But the 4A1, take a look at that conference. Last year, you had a team in the state championship game in Prairie Grove. You had a team in the state semifinals in Pea Ridge. You got Shiloh Christian with 10 offensive starters back. I mean, top to bottom, it's a pretty good conference. You got Lincoln over there, which made the playoffs last year, a team that really not a lot of people talk about, but they may have the best athlete at quarterback in the entire conference in Harrison Swain.
That's right.
So, Gravette under Bill Harrelson, they're always going to be well coached, always going to play football the right way. So the conference, just top to bottom, just a really good conference.
Gravette's got a real tough matchup against Ozark. They used to play Pottsville, a very tough matchup to open the season. Now, not that it's much easier. They're taking on Ozark right off the bat.
Well, they are, and Ozark was down last year, but you don't expect them to stay down. Gravette, there's no question they're playing a tough non-conference schedule. I mean, they've got 3 really tough games to start the season with. So, Pea Ridge opens up at home tonight against Booneville. So
yeah,
that's
matchup.
A great matchup and a traditional power. And I know Booneville's numbers are low because they've lost some enrollment down there, so they're kind of on that cusp of being a 3A, 4A, so they're not going to trot as many players out there as Pea Ridge will have tonight. But Booneville kids are always going to play tough. They're going to play the full, 48 minutes or 68 minutes or however long the football game is going to be. They're going to play hard every second of that game.
Really some great matchups in that 4A1. Top to bottom, even if it's at the top of Pea Ridge and Prairie Grove, Gentry at Lavaca is an interesting game. Lavaca is down in 2A, but that's kind of misleading. They're going to do well in that classification. Berryville playing Decatur. Good for Decatur.
How about Decatur?
That they're here and playing.
Now, you talk about your recruiting jobs. Let's talk about Decatur for a second. Decatur started the football season, practice 9 players. They had 2 big 55-gallon trash cans out there as the 10th and 11th player, which that was pretty much my high school career. I was kind of like the trash can. I didn't really wasn't that good either.
There you go.
So anyway, I kind of identified with the trash can. But anyway, their coaches went out and they recruited and got 15 additional players to add to the team. So not only did they salvage their season, they now have enough depth where they can actually give some of their two-way players some breaks here and there in a game.
Down in 3A, another big rivalry game, Greenland at West Fork is one to look out for. West Fork is out of our area, just in northwest Arkansas. They're, of course, playing here, but they play in the 4A4, so that's a good one to watch. We just mentioned Decatur. So a lot of these great non-conference games in the lower class and in 7A West. It's all going to be something to keep an eye on. We're just excited to get it started. And just keep an eye on us here at Prep Rally, brought to you by AR Preps. We'll be here every week. We'll be recapping the games every week and then previewing as we go along. I'm Vernon Tarver, your host, Chip Souza. Thanks for joining us on Prep Rally.
We'll see you tonight.